At my wedding, my mom smiled at me and said, "We're passing the cars his parents gave you." I didn't even understand what she meant until I saw them drive away in the cars that were supposed to be ours. The music stopped. Guests whispered. My husband's parents smiled like it was part of the ceremony, but my chest tightened because I knew something wasn't right. Just 2 hours earlier, I was standing in front of the mirror, the happiest I'd ever been. I thought today would finally bring both families together. My mom had told me, "Beta, we may not be rich, but we'll make this day unforgettable." She was right, but not in the way I imagined. As I walked down the aisle, I didn't notice my mom avoiding my eyes. I didn't notice my sister's forced smile. I didn't even notice that my husband's family looked far too pleased. But then after the vows, after the rings, after the photos, my mom leaned close, her voice trembling but smiling for the cameras, and said it again. "We're passing the cars his parents gave you." It took me a few seconds to process. My heart dropped. Those cars weren't gifts, they were dowry, disguised as blessings. My mom had promised me she'd never accept or give anything in return for my hand. But now she had behind my back. Everyone clapped. Everyone smiled. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't my wedding. It was a transaction. I kept smiling, but inside something broke. Because I knew right then, I wasn't marrying the man I loved. I was marrying into a family that had bought me. But what they didn't know was that I had already found out what they did to my father. And before the night ended, every single person who treated me like a deal was going to regret it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Flame, the place where real emotions, painful betrayals, and unforgettable revenge stories come alive. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because the story I'm about to share isn't just emotional, it's personal. It's about a bride who thought her wedding day would be the happiest day of her life, until her own mother smiled and said, "We're passing the cars his parents gave you." What looked like a celebration turned into a transaction, and what started as love ended as betrayal. You'll see how one woman's trust was shattered not by strangers, but by the people she trusted most, and how she turned that heartbreak into something no one expected. Revenge that came wrapped in silence, class, and perfect timing. So grab a moment, take a deep breath, because this story will make you question how far love, loyalty, and family can truly go. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone you thought would protect you, this one will hit home. All right, let's dive in. I come from a family that always believed in appearances. My mom was the kind of woman who cared deeply about what people would say about the neighbors, about reputation, about izzat. My father, on the other hand, was quiet, a kind man who worked day and night to give us everything, even when it meant hiding his pain. When I met Ayan, I thought I'd finally found someone who saw me not my family name, not my background me. He was charming, respectful, and always said, "Your family will be mine too." That's what I wanted to believe. But as our relationship grew, I noticed small red flags, the kind people ignore when they're blinded by love. His parents would often make subtle remarks about money, about how our son deserves the best, and how marriage is a union of families, not just hearts. My mom ate those words up. She wanted to impress them, to show we weren't less. My father tried to stop her. I remember one night he said softly, "We'll lose our peace trying to please people who can't be pleased." She didn't listen. When Ayan's family visited for the engagement, my mom insisted on giving them expensive gifts, jewelry, watches, even an imported perfume set for his father. I told her it wasn't necessary, but she said, "It's just respect." It wasn't. It was the start of a deal I never agreed to. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I started feeling something was off, whispers between my mom and his mother, hidden bills and sudden changes in plans. But I pushed it all aside. After all, it was my wedding, the day I'd waited my whole life for. I had no idea. That same day would also be the day I lost faith in both love and family. The days before the wedding felt like walking on glass. Every smile felt rehearsed, every word measured. My mom and Ayan's mother were suddenly best friends, always whispering about arrangements and respect. Whenever I entered the room, they'd go silent. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just wedding stress, but deep down something didn't feel right. The night before the wedding, I found my dad sitting alone in the dark living room. He looked tired, older than I'd ever seen him. When I asked what was wrong, he just said, "Some gifts come with a price, Beta, and your mother has paid it." I didn't understand what he meant, not then. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up to chaos. Jewelry boxes were being locked, envelopes exchanged, and my mom's voice was trembling but firm. I heard her say to someone on the phone, "Yes, we've arranged the cars." Tell them to send theirs after the ceremony. I froze. Cars? What cars? When I walked in, she quickly changed the topic, smiling too wide. You look beautiful, my daughter, she said, adjusting my dupatta, but I could see guilt in her eyes. The ceremony began. Cameras flashed, flowers fell, and everyone cheered except my father. He stood quietly in the corner, his eyes fixed on the 2 car keys wrapped in golden. Ribbon placed beside the gift table. Then came the line that burned into my memory forever. As the guests gathered to congratulate us, my mom leaned close to Ayan's parents and said with a smile, "We're passing the cars his parents gave you." They smiled back, satisfied. My father turned away. That's when everything started making sense, the sudden whispers. The extra jewelry, the hidden bills. The cars were never theirs. They were bought with my father's savings money. He had been saving for years to start his own business after retirement. And my mom had given it all away to please them, to buy their approval, to make our family look equal. I felt my stomach twist. Ayan didn't even look surprised. He knew. He knew about the deal. But the worst part? He didn't see a problem. He just said softly, "It's just tradition, babe. Everyone does it." That's when I realized he wasn't the man I thought I was marrying. He was part of the game. And standing there, still in my wedding dress, surrounded by fake smiles and flashing cameras, I made a silent promise. They thought they bought me, but I was going to show them what it costs to betray love. At first, I thought it was all just a misunderstanding. Maybe my mom didn't realize what she was doing. Maybe Ayan's family misunderstood the gesture. But the truth came crashing down harder than I expected. 2 days after the wedding, while unpacking at Ayan's house, I overheard his mother on a call. Her voice was sharp, full of pride. "Yes, they gave us the cars and gold too. I told you that girl's family knows how to buy respect." Buy respect. 2 words that tore something inside me. I walked into the room, my hands trembling. "What did you just say?" I asked. She smiled, not even ashamed. "Oh, come on, dear. It's normal. Your mother did well. Now people will know our son married into a respectable family." My heart started pounding. My mother the same. Woman who used to lecture me about self-worth. Had sold her daughter's dignity for social approval. When I called her that night, my voice was shaking with anger. "Ami, did you really give them those cars from Papa's savings?" There was silence. Then she said softly, "Beta, this is how things are done. Don't make a scene. Don't make a scene." She didn't hear the sound of my heart breaking on the other end. Ayan stood beside me, expressionless. He didn't comfort me, didn't defend me. Instead, he said, "My parents did a lot for this wedding too. Let it go. My father's dreams, his years of hard work gone in one transaction." That night, I found my dad's last bank statement in my bag. He had withdrawn everything just before the wedding. The note attached said, "For your happiness." Tears blurred my vision. Happiness? No, this wasn't happiness. This was humiliation wrapped in tradition. That was the night something inside me changed. The naive daughter, the obedient wife, she died quietly. What remained was a woman who promised herself one thing. If they treated my marriage like a business deal, then I'd make sure they paid the price in full. They thought my silence was weakness. They were wrong. I spent the weeks after the wedding like a quiet storm watching. Gathering, waiting. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I learned to smile like before, but every smile was a calculation. I recorded calls. I copied bank statements. I kept every receipt, every message, the hidden evidence of how they'd turned my life into a ledger. Then I sent a message everyone would answer. Family dinner this Saturday, both families present. It's important. Their curiosity won. They came. Cameras, cousins, chai, the whole charade. I wore the same dress from the wedding. Not for nostalgia, for contrast. I wanted them to remember the day they thought they'd bought me. I placed 2 small boxes on the table and a folder with photocopies of bank documents. On my phone, I queued a single audio file. When the dessert arrived and smug conversation filled the room, I stood. The room felt heavier than my wedding hall ever had. I didn't shout. I spoke low, steady, the kind of voice that held more power than any outburst. "Before we start," I said, "I want everyone to hear something." I pressed play. First my mother's voice, calm, practiced. "Tell them we've arranged the cars. They'll be grateful." Then Ayan's mother, laughing. "Of course they did well. Those cars will make people talk." Their voices were crisp, confident exactly, as I'd recorded them months earlier when I'd overheard them at my own house. Gasps. My mother's face drained. My husband's jaw tightened. Then I placed the photocopied bank statement on the table and slid the yellowed note my father had written, "For your happiness." I read the amounts aloud, slow, clearly. I read out the account withdrawals and the dates. I told them how my father had planned to open a small shop, how he'd saved for years. Silence swallowed the room. A cousin whispered, but my father's shoulders shook. He looked at my mother like a man who had seen the ground give way beneath his feet. Those cars, I said, aren't a gift. They're bought from his savings. They're proof the family I was born into was traded for approval. Opened the 2 boxes and placed a pair of car keys on the table. The same cars people had shown off at the wedding. These belong to my father's future. Tonight I give them back. I didn't scream insults. I didn't slap anyone. I did something worse for them. I made the truth public. I uploaded the audio, the bank statements, and a short video of Ayan's mother bragging. To our neighbors, to my channel, and 3 local community groups. Within an hour, messages were flying. People I barely knew were asking questions. The polite invitations stopped. The smiles evaporated. Ayan stood to protest, but I cut him off. You told me once you loved me, but love doesn't barter a life away. I will not live in a house built on my father's sacrifice. I handed the keys to my father. Start your shop, I said. Buy back your dreams. I walked out before anyone could answer. No dramatic scene, just the click of the front door as the new silence settled over them like a verdict. Revenge wasn't about humiliation for humiliation's sake. It was about returning what was stolen and exposing the lie with quiet justice. They had thought they purchased my loyalty, but in the end, they lost something far more precious. The trust of the very community that had once admired them. And me? I left with my head high, with my father's note folded in my pocket, and with a plan to rebuild on my terms. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, missed calls, screenshots. The story had spread like wildfire, not because I wanted fame, but because truth travels faster than lies when people have seen. You smile through betrayal. Ayan's family tried to deny everything. They claimed the recordings were edited, but the community knew better. They'd heard those same voices bragging for months. Their reputation crumbled in days. Invitations stopped coming. Business partners backed away, and the perfect family image they'd built shattered overnight. My mother didn't speak to me for weeks. She was ashamed not because of what she did, but because everyone found out. My father, though, he didn't say a word. He just came to see me one afternoon, standing outside my small apartment. He handed me a brown paper bag. It was a signboard. Rihan's repair shop, dreams rebuilt. He'd opened it. Finally. When I hugged him, he whispered, "You did what I couldn't, you said no." That's when I realized my revenge wasn't just for me. It was for him too, for every father who sacrifices quietly, for every daughter told to stay silent. As for Ayan, he tried calling, apologizing, begging for another chance. But I'd already found peace in something better. Freedom. Freedom from pretending, from traditions that chained women behind smiles. I didn't need to ruin him. Watching him live with the fallout of his own greed was enough. Weeks later, I posted one last video on my channel, a message to every girl who's ever been told to let it go. Revenge isn't always about destroying someone, I said softly. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself so completely that the people who broke you can't recognize the woman you've become. That video went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. And as I watched my father open his shop's shutters for the first time, sunlight spilling across his smile, I finally felt it. Not victory, not revenge, closure. Looking back now, sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Maybe I could have handled it quietly. Maybe I could have forgiven my mother, ignored the humiliation, and moved on. But then I remember my father's tired eyes. The years he spent sacrificing his own dreams just to see me smile, and I realized silence would have been the real betrayal. I didn't expose them to seek revenge. I did it to remind them and myself that love without respect is just control in disguise. That family without truth is just performance. People often think revenge means anger, but for me, it became clarity. The moment I stood up and told the truth, I stopped being a victim. I became someone who refused to carry the weight of others' guilt. I still love my mother. I understand now that she acted out of fear of judgment, fear of being less. Society had taught her that a daughter's worth is measured in gold and gifts. But maybe my story showed her, and others like her, that worth isn't something you buy, it's something you stand for. If I could go back, I wouldn't change what I did, because that moment of truth didn't just expose them, it freed me. Sometimes standing up for yourself looks messy. Sometimes it costs relationships, peace, even family. But the truth? It's worth every ounce of the chaos it brings. So if you're listening right now, and you've been made to feel small, ashamed, or guilty for wanting respect, remember this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't have to accept pain just because it's tradition. And you don't have to wait for someone else to save you. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of revenge is living the life they swore you'd never be strong enough to create. So, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed silent to protect your family's name or stood up and exposed the truth, no matter the cost? Because sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. It's standing your ground when everyone expects you to bow. If this story touched your heart, made you think, or reminded you of your own strength, tell me in the comments below. I read every single one, and your words mean more than you know. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone who should have protected, you remember you're not alone. Here on Revenge Flame, we share real emotions, real stories, and real justice, not the kind found in courtrooms, but the kind that happens inside your heart when you finally take your power back. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another story that burns this deep. Because next week, I'm sharing a story that begins with a bride's smile and ends with a letter that destroys 3 lives. You don't want to miss that. Until then, stay strong, stay kind. And remember, sometimes silence is peace, but the truth, that's the loudest revenge of all.